Welcome back, growers! It's Monday, May 12th, I think. Yes, my calendar says yes. And we're here to learn as we grow. Today's conversation is the start of a wonderful series. We're talking about gardening in history when we actually switched from foraging to farming. Was it beneficial? Was it a mistake? Before there were grocery stores, garden centers, or even cities, there was soil, stone tools, and the will to survive. Imagine having to grow every bite you eat without modern tools, without irrigation, just instinct and grit. In this episode, we're digging deep into the roots of gardening, where it all began, how the first humans became growers, and why the garden was once the line between life and death. If you're in the replay, hello. Thanks for watching the replay. Now it's your turn to dig in. Imagine you're living 10,000 years ago, no tools, no grocery stores, just soil and survival. What's the one crop you'd try to grow first? In our poll for the live show, the question is, which ancient crop would you grow if you had to survive like early humans? Wheat or barley from the Middle East, rice from China, maize, corn from Mesoamerica, or potatoes from Andes. Let's see. I know we have Bowtie Life in the Garden. We've been talking. Narrow the window to about 66% width of your screen. We're talking about the thumbnail. Mike's Chaotic Gardening! Hello. I consider adding chaotic gardening to my channel name early on. Potatoes! This is Bowtie Life in the Garden's vote for our little poll. I think those are the... Oh, and then Mark. Let's see if he's still here. He was here earlier. Mushroom Mark, I am live. I went live earlier than we talked about because I got my stuff done. And yes, Bowtie is excited to stick around for this conversation. Big Will Dog 82 in the soil. You picked potatoes too? Yeah, like we know what to do with them, right? Mike picked corn. All right, all right. Okay, so time period, approximately 10,000 BCE is the Neolithic Revolution. So this is humanity's first major step from foraging wild plants and legumes and grains to cultivating crops, actually turning into gardening for survival. And so where did it begin? Well, I have a map. Okay. The Fertile Crescent, Middle East, present-day Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Israel. Other early centers, China, Yangtze, and Yellow River Valleys, Mesoamerica, Andes, Sub-Saharan Africa. Show map. Here's the map. Mesopotamia. So this map actually has a little key on it that talks about natural distribution of wild cereals. The Fertile Crescent is the green hue crescent shape. Wild cereal, evidence of animal domestication, evidence of consumption of wild cereals, evidence of domestication of cereals. So there's barley, lentils, rye, einkorn, wheat, emmer wheat, lentils, peas, and then goats, cattle, sheep, pigs listed on the map. So here's where we're at when we're talking about this conversation, okay? Why did it happen? Well, it's not like we can ask anybody. We just have to put together the puzzle pieces of what we have. So they're thinking that after the Ice Age, it led to a more stable environment for things to just show up. Like, you know how we have a seed bank in the earth? Things started to grow. Human population started to grow. Usually they followed the water. And I think there was things drying out. And as they moved, they needed to come up with a more reliable food source, right? So the wild grains that just started growing, emmer, einkorn wheat, barley, they were abundant and could be cultivated. A lot of things started to be domesticated, and we're going to throw out that word a lot. What that means with plants and animals is they bred them for characteristics that they liked. They seed saved, right? There might be some examples as we go, I'm pretty sure. So, what's going on in the chat? Mike says we can grow and preserve corn easier than potatoes here. It's all about knowing your location and what's gonna thrive, right? Mushroom Mark. I mean, corn feed our food. I should probably change my answer. Did I miss a what? We talked about you in the after party? You're telling me this publicly like this, Bowtie? How dare you? Okay, so that I was gonna bring this up yesterday. I was on the Urban Gardener show, and I did like a 15-minute. I was up on the panel having a conversation with the host, and I have shared the channel link in the posts of my YouTube channel. And then yesterday, I had it actually in the description of the live. Because if you didn't know, we went live yesterday and we talked about plants that are resistant to deer. And I didn't have time to fill in the description fully for this live right now, but I will after the show to put all the things that I normally put in there. And I can add that the Urban Gardener live stream that I came up on in. So let's see here. Bochai says, so there are a lot of coincidences on the date ranges in the biblical record. It challenges the conventional knowledge. I can't wait to hear about everybody's opinions. Bring it on. Mark says, what? I thought it all just happened overnight. What's this evolution theory? Bochai says, I stored potatoes on a shelf for 9 months. They are growing right now in my garden. Big Will Dog says, I feel potatoes can be turned around easier than corn. I bet you can grow potatoes in a grow room with lights too. Not sure about corn though. These are all good points. And it's like, well, Big Will Dog, what happens in the after party stays in the after party? Questioning. Oh, what's gonna eat your crop? Like, is a potato more likely to be taken out by wildlife, or is corn? So the Neolithic age is sometimes called the New Stone Age. Neolithic humans used stone tools just like their earlier Stone Age ancestors. We are going to talk about a little bit about the before Neolithic as we go throughout the show. So the cereals such as emmer, wheat, einkorn, wheat, and barley were among the first crops domesticated by the Neolithic farming communities in the Fertile Crescent, which I showed on the map. And we know a lot of this from like archaeologists digging out remains and looking at things. The early farmers also domesticated lentils, chickpeas, peas, and flax. Grape and fig are very ancient and may have been cultivated for 10,000 years. The early domesticated crops in the Middle East, the wheat, barley, lentils, chickpeas, China, millet, rice, Mesoamerica, maize, squash, beans, in the Andes, potatoes, quinoa, in Africa, sorghum and yams. No large grained species of any kind existed in South America, so they domesticated the tuberous species, potato, sweet potato, and cassava, and the pseudograins. I don't know how to say this. Is it just chenopod? And amaranth. So if we talk about tools, it's probably what you think it is. Your hands and your feet, right? And then, you could make some stuff out of wood and stone. There we go. So early gardening tools, digging sticks, sharpened wood used to break soil, stone hoes made from chipped flint or basalt, basketry for carrying soil and harvested food, and of course, fire. Fire was used very much during this time. Who do we have in the chat? What is Bowtie talking about? That's Fight Club, not After Party Club. The Urban Gardener, we were just talking about you. Hello, everyone listening in. Good to catch you live, Shawnee. Glad you could make it and you checked your notifications because we always are going live randomly over here. Bowtie says, all we need is Jay. There we are. Jay, hello all. That's a Bowtie Dave. I made it. Hey, Bobby, how's it going? We're just in the beginning of our conversation here. Mushroom Mark says grapes, the Rome's there with their wines. Yes, Bowtie says, Shawneegrows, we spoke about you because we all want to support your efforts here. It is real cool and I love your format. Well, thank you very much. We love the positive feedback. I like having gardening conversations. And we have Rick. Hello, just popped on in time. Yes, so far we've covered the map of where this switch from foraging to gardening and farming started. We talked about crops that then were domesticated. We looked at the tools. Now we can talk about the gardening methods. So, slashing and burning in agriculture to clear the land, planting in the ash enriched soil. Those are things we still see today, right? The floodplain gardening took advantage of river overflows, especially in the Nile and Tigris Euphrates areas. So we always kind of need to know what is our water source when we're planting our garden. That's something we still have on our checklists, right? The simple raised beds and mounded rows to control drainage and planting areas. Could you survive with only what you could grow using stone tools? Let me know in the comment section on the replay and here in the live conversation. Thinking about your routine in your garden, and maybe you have some favorite tools. Could you make that with sticks and stones? So archaeologists have found the remains of food such as almonds, pistachios, olives, grapes, and many other edible plants. Among these is a fruit known as rubus, I think is how you say it, which is a small similar to a blackberry. They did talk about having to eat this fresh. It wasn't they weren't preserving that berry in that time. The animal remains included a wide variety of fish, turtles, waterfowl, and several breeds of mammal ranging from rabbit to gazelle. Now, Neolithic farmers selected for crops that harvested easily. So, like when we talk about how the earth has that seed bank, and when the ice age ended, seeds started having the right five things: the temperature, the air, the sun, the moisture, the nutrition started coming up. The wild wheat, for instance, falls to the ground and shatters when it's ripe. And the early humans bred for wheat that stayed on the stem for easier harvesting. And then domestic pigs were bred from wild boars. For instance, while goats came from the Persian ibex, they also carried infectious diseases, and they did have smallpox, influenza, and the measles all spread between animal and human during all of this practicing of domesticating things for farming. So the first farm animals also included the sheep and cattle, which we saw on our map from earlier. These originated in Mesopotamia between 10,000 and 13,000 years ago. The water buffalo and yak were domesticated shortly after in China, India, and Tibet. So the draft animals, including oxen, donkeys, and camels, appeared much later, around 4000 BC, as humans developed trade routes for transporting goods. And I think we're going to get further into this because this is going to be a gardening series where we go throughout the timeline of when develops changed and gardening shifted. So trade is going to come up, I imagine. So Mike's listening in the bushes. Janet made it. Hey, how's it going? I love when people are engaging in the chat. Bowtie says, I think I could definitely survive on my own made tools. I don't use much outside of my bare hands. I love getting dirt under my nails. The thing that gets me is like, I guess I need to learn how to like weave a basket or grow a gourd and carve it out, because I love a bucket, right? A basket, a bucket, something to carry and haul things. Jay says, we waited until you left to talk about you. I hear. Big Will Dog says, self-made tools. I'm your guy when it comes to making things work for other uses. MacGyver taught me all I know. Bowtie says, you missed tuberculosis. Oh, on the disease list? Well, thank you that you're here to add that, but that may be a misconception. This deserves a whole series. Yeah, like the disease part of it. There's my whole bonus, I think, for this is, was this a big mistake? And that's how we're going to kind of dig into at the later part of the show is, Was this really beneficial to humankind? This switch from foraging to farming, or is this when it all kind of went, you know what I mean? Rick says, wonder about Egyptian period. Yeah, there's tons that we're going to get into as the series develops. The Urban Gardener says, I agree about a basket or a bucket. It's definitely my most used thing that I don't know how to make. I mean, I could grow a gourd and hollow it out. Bote says, I've woven baskets, blankets too. Yeah, textiles and stuff. Jay says to Bowtie in the garden, yes, when I did social work, 2 of my clients had TB and I had to do progressive immunization to protect myself. I have been tested for that based on different jobs I've had in the past. Okay, so when we're talking about the Paleolithic age, which was before the Neolithic, everybody focused on a very specific task, right? Like there wasn't a whole lot of things to do. It was hunting and gathering. There was no organized jobs or specializations. But then, when we started the Neolithic age, the invention of the communities started happening. People started living together in huge groups. Like there was this civilization in Turkey. They found homes so stuck together. They thought there was 8,000 people probably living all on top of each other in this area. They created like mud homes and you had to go through a hole in the roof to get in the house. Just think about that. Think about how that changed so much from you would just travel with your small little group and roam around and you would run into people and you didn't know what to do with them, right? To this. Humans gained more knowledge. We had more specific things to be done other than the hunting and gathering. So instead of having multiple mediocre skills, instead of having everyone be equal and understand everything, people decided to start specializing. The specializations included craftsmen, potters, farmers, and weavers. Huge technological advancement happened during this time. Writing allowed better communication for civilizations. It wasn't just about pictures, they actually developed writing to talk with each other. We are going to go over garden layout and structure. Let's see here. So the small manageable plots. Early gardens were not large fields, okay? They were small patches, often under 100 square feet. These could be grouped near homes or shelters for easy tending and protection. They kind of didn't know what they were doing. They needed to watch over it, right? The mounded or leveled rolls. Soil was shaped into raised mounds or rolls. This makes me think of swales, right? It improves drainage, concentrate fertility, make planting and harvesting easier. And they did intercropping, which we talk about all the time with companion planting and having that plant diversity, more roots in the ground, to have a healthy soil food web, to create rhizophagy, to have a top immune living plant so bugs don't want to eat it. And when we and the animals eat it, it is great for our gut microbiome, right? They were doing intercropping, multiple crops planted together to maximize space, reduce pest pressure, grains and legumes or tubers kind of planted in layers, right? No fencing. They used natural barriers, thorny bushes, ditches, planting in tucked away spots helped protect crops from wild animals. We talked about this last night in our live stream with the deer resistant gardening methods. Yes, there's plants that they don't want to eat, but as they're browsing, you have to spread it out and kind of tuck your stuff behind them and away from them so they don't find them, right? You can be smarter than that. Fencing did come later with a lot of the settled villages, and we can kind of get into that when we talk about the hierarchy that forms when we started doing agriculture. The manual watering and rain reliance. We had to have the rain if you weren't growing by the river, right? People used gourds to haul water from nearby rivers or springs. Fertile floodplains like the Nile or Tigris, Euphrates valleys, which we talked about earlier. Before I move on, I will see if there is liquid gold happening in the conversations here. All good talking. One person says half the good things about me when I croak. Just kidding. That was the TB conversation. Well, the TB pandemic in the late 1800s was really where that came about. Millennia past this Neolithic revolution. That's right. And side note, TB pandemic killed many, many, many times more than our more recent COVID pandemic. Oh, interesting. Jay is talking to Bowtie. There's a theory amongst college students in the classes about basket weaving terms for easy classes. Swales, indeed. Yes, it sounds like swales. Yeah, and the whole like burning the land. First, they burned. Here's the thing. Like, why did it take so long for people to decide to switch from foraging to farming? Because was it a mistake, right? They used burning to kind of move and herd animals, wild animals. And they had to have observed the connection between doing that and then seeing the burst of life that happened, right? And what we know today is making biochar. Big Will Dog says, Shawneegrows, so what you're saying is ancient man practiced the school of hard knocks to learn. So I am following my genetic programming. Bochai says, swales are dated to right after the Neolithic Revolution, like immediately afterwards. So that'll be on our next episode then. Big Will Doug says, only gold going on is me urinating on your compost pile to add urea, that little nitrogen addition. Fantastic. Okay, so crop spacing and planting. How are they doing this? The seeds were pretty much broadcasted or scattered, or they pushed the seed into the hole made by a stick. And then how are they maintaining their garden spaces? Well, weeding was done by hand or with sticks, and gardens required constant observation. You know, like when you're trying to learn how to do something and you just really have to be in it, right? Harvesting had to be timed carefully to avoid loss to animals or spoilage. I mean, think about even weather. I read a book, The Blue Buffalo Wild Woman or something. It's going to come up in the history series, but she talked about you work so hard to grow something and harvest it, and maybe you have it drying out in the sun, and you need to know, like, is there rain and wind coming? Because I need to bring all that in. Otherwise, what am I going to do all winter? By the way, if you like what you're learning, tap that like button. Don't miss a grow, subscribe. And if you know a gardener who'd love this, please share the stream. So was this revolution a great mistake? Let's dig into that. It is possible that women were the ones who observed the connection between fallen seeds and a richer harvest when they returned to a certain spot later. So the farmer would use a stick to poke a hole in which the seed was dropped, and after harvest, women would do much, if not all, of the food preparation. This task called for grinding the grain on a stone. Maybe you've seen this at like a Renaissance fair or a rendezvous festival, a historic reenactment with the kids. They give you some corn and they have you grind it together sitting on the ground. Drying, smoking, storage pits, baskets, fat sealing, ash and charcoal storage. Farming peoples had a less nutritious diet. When we started growing food and gardening and farming, we started just consuming the stuff. We were like hyper focusing on it. Where before, when we were gathering all the different wild things in season as we traveled, we wrecked our nutrition. Women also had to take on more physical jobs and repetitive work of doing the grinding and being hunched over for hours. It showed in their remains, their skeletal remains, when the archaeologists are discovering all these things. Women started to have more babies to help with farming, which puts a lot of strain on their bodies, as well as they needed to get back out there and do more physical jobs. Like, no, we were no longer big equal, everyone could do the same thing anymore. There was evidence that women spent hours kneeling over their grinding stones, resulting in deformed toes, curved thigh bones, arthritic knees and backs. Pre-agriculture skeletons revealed none of those. The humans that were living before this didn't have these health issues, right? When we started doing these things, the land was disturbed to either drain an area that was flooding or to capture water. And the civilization started building these communities and these villages, and they stayed put versus just going where the food was, right? Getting that fresh air and the movement. This whole competition of starting to grow our own food. I have to switch screens. Hold on. Meant that they needed to protect the harvest, and it contributed to a growing hierarchy in society. I'm heading back to the comments. As in aborigines, I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry, did in Australia. That's using fire. Bochai says, I don't agree that farming brought about more populations. I think it's opposite. More populations brought about the need for better raising of food, in my opinion. I love people's opinions. Bring it on. Pardon the pun, says Rick. Billy Will Dog says, sorry, been having a few this evening. My filter is currently set at 40%. Well, maybe I will read it silently before we post it. But you're okay so far. Jay says to Big Will Dog in the soil, I want to see that data as a graphic that adapts. Botai says, yeah, I demand graphics, Big Will Dog, and how we were measuring the parameters of his 40% remaining. Janet says, I got a late night phone call. I have paused. Well, make sure you hit the replay for all the good things you've missed. There's a chocolate tequila happening in the hand over there. Women in China have suffered deformations for more eras than most other cultures, from what I understand. I believe that. Wow. 2 graphics are demanded here. Oh, okay. Aborigines. Aborigines. Here's another one. Aborigines. Aborigines. That's the indigenous persons before colonization. Thank you for having me pronounce it in the best way I can. I appreciate all of you. Silly Lily, welcome to our conversation. There is someone has chocolate tequila and chocolate martinis. Thank you. Okay. So, did the benefits of settled life outweigh that loss of free time, nutrition, health, and shared roles? Could ancient humans have made any other choice? Did we have to do it this way? The life of a forager is better in terms of balance, connection to nature, a varied diet, and mutual respect for all members of the community. They had also developed an intimate knowledge of how countless plant species could be used for food and medicine, and knew how to detoxify otherwise poisonous food sources. But in the same sentence, the farming movement of agriculture has led over time to amazing advances in the arts, science, language, and literature. But humans lost their connection to nature along the way. How do we feel about this? Big Will Dog says, I'm seriously not seeing my... There was a comment removed. Don't forget to answer the poll. We have 19 votes. I will close that soon. Bowtie says, I'm not sure foragers were healthier. Yeah, it's like we can't interview them, right? We can't be like, are the foragers more happy than the farmers? I feel like there's constant worry with foragers, but there's also constant stress with farming. I mean, as gardeners today, do you not get a little worked up about weather? Even though you have data that shows it 10 days in advance, and if it's just 3 degrees off, you're stressed out. Like, Jay Dixon comes in with a pro tip falling behind the video. Click the playback speed to a faster setting to hear Shawnee as a chipmunk and catch up. So the question is, which ancient crop would you grow if you had to survive like the early humans? Would it be wheat or barley from the Middle East, rice from China, maize or corn from Mesoamerica, or potatoes from the Andes? I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to post it in the chat so I can put it up on the screen for those on the replay, because otherwise it doesn't show up. I do have live chat replay on, so if it isn't loaded when you come back, check later, because it takes a while sometimes for it to process. Silly Lily says, because of foragers, farmers, and hunters, we're here. We need to thank everybody, right? Oh, we have Howie coming in towards... I said all the stuff I had to say already. Copy. So now I'm ready to hear opinions. So this is for those of you in the replay. This is what we're talking about the poll. The things that people would most likely grow today for the people here in the live chat is potatoes. And then next was corn. And rice was last. Big Will Dog says, yes, we as people did lose a connection with the land. As a great-grandson to a full-blooded Native American, I see so much we have lost along the way. Hello, LGGG Love. Good to see you. Check out the replay for the map and pictures of tools and wonderful conversation we've had so far about the first gardens when we switched from foraging to farming. Was it a mistake? Jay says, I voted taters due to my ethnicity. And it's really good to see food forms permaculture. Oh, Bowtie's having some fun. Dave Knight! Hi, everyone. You're on early. Okay, so I did schedule it for 10 o'clock because I felt like I didn't have enough time to put all the banners together. But I rushed and got it done. So you'll have to hit the replay for the beginning. Tammy Harder. Hi there, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. If you love Garden Talk, you can listen to the Learn As You Grow podcast, available on Spotify and many more, as well as on the YouTube channel under the podcast tab. They're very helpful for when you're walking your dog, you're in your car, or on your way to sleep. You can listen to me talk more about gardening. Usually it's a condensed version of something we've already spoke about on the live stream. Let's check the comments. Bowtie says foragers would have hunted with primitive methods. I'm not sure how safe that really was. I see some pretty gruesome injuries, scars, and more than the girls just would not dig. All valid points. That's right. The radish is getting big, Howie says to Dave Knight. Jay says, corn gets attacked by raccoons here. Makes you really unpopular in the community gardens. That was something we talked about earlier. When you pick your crop, understand what's going to eat it. Do you have those in your area? How are you going to keep it safe, right? So, of course, in our next episode, when we get back into our gardening history, we're going to explore how ancient civilizations used gardens for medicine, food, and even the afterlife. You'll never look at onions and date palms the same way again. From the fertile gardens of ancient Egypt to the structured beauty of Mesopotamian orchards, gardening wasn't just about survival anymore. It had shifted. It became a symbol of power, religion, and culture. We also are going to talk about how to keep furry critters out of the garden, natural, safe, and effective tips in one of our upcoming shows. So make sure you're subscribed because it's a little bit random. Okay, Bowtie says, I believe it was not a mistake. It was just the progression of time and growth of population. God did say, quote, go into the world and prosper, filling the earth, etc., etc., quote, something like that. I really love what Howie Food Forest Permaculture does with encouraging people to forage what grows naturally in your area and observe it and keep track of it and understand it and eat it like we used to do. Howie says hugelkultur mounds are the oldest pre-industrial agricultural known to man. Yeah, we talked about the gardening method of having the mounds when we first started understanding how to like domesticate different crops. Bowtie says mint. Shawneegrows grow mint. It takes care of a world of furry pests. Is that your strategy? You'll have to come to that show and shout it from the rooftops about mint. Big Will Dog says he also said not to eat the apples. Then why make them so tasty? It's the gardening in history series. I have to limit how long I sit reading articles, right? Because I could do it much longer. But then we would never have our show. So don't forget to look at the description because I always put the sources. So like there was a history.com website, the tool website, worldhistory.org for the map that I showed, Remedial, her story for what foods they ate, and then later I'll put the missing links that I talked about in the beginning. I will remember. Food Forest Permaculture says burning the ground also produced good growing conditions. Yeah, we talked about how they had to have observed when they were burning grounds just to move herds of animals that eventually life came back and was fantastic. How we mentioned how women were probably the ones that noticed that when you came back to an area where you harvested stuff, the seed fell and it grew better, it grew stronger, or maybe it changed. Fire was the tool, one of the tools listed to prepare the ground, and then planting in the ash rich soil, right? Bowtie says, I foraged Simlax, dollarweed, Florida betony, decandra, all in my yard. Fantastic. Yes, we did discuss the fire. Big Will Dog says, Shawneegrows, it's all right. We all have our niche. Boy, the autocorrect is saving my bacon right now. Bowtie says, hugelkultur only dates back a few centuries, not even a whole 1,000 years ago. Yeah, the mounds that Neolithic planted in didn't bury stuff that I know of. Bury stuff in the, like a hugelkultur layer. But again, like nobody could tell us what actually happened. We're all using our investigator skills here to figure out, based on what's still left, what happened, right? Howie's throwing out hashtag pathway soil bank to make soil rapidly. For all you soil lovers out there, check it out. It's a great method. We've talked about it here on a previous live stream with all kinds of composting methods. That is all I have to say. What does this say? Oh, I can tell you what happened. Know it all. Oh, Jay knows. Jay has connections. Do you have the book? Is there a book, Jay? Yeah, it's like, normally I do shows and I have a bunch of pictures and we watch like a little video. I can't really do that for this kind of subject, right? Big Will Dog says, what is it called again? The layered soil in the Amazon. I believe that is the perfect for supporting all the vegetation. Oh, when I want to pull a word out of my brain, it doesn't happen. I know somebody in here is going to say it. Terra Preta. Is that what you're talking about? I'll put it in the chat. Is there a full moon tonight? Because in that case, then I should go get my book and read to you about the full moon this month. Is it? I'll have to look that. Is it tonight? Preta. Yeah, I spelled that right. Is this what you're talking about? There's like clay in it. Pottery clay, I mean. The biochar, the charcoal, some kind of compost source, chopping and dropping. Fantastic beautifulness. Okay, archaeology can tell us what happened to an extent. It is full of fairly decent information by semi-trustworthy people. This is why I was talking about the moon, because Tammy brought it up. So then I was gonna look up, is it tonight? Is it, let's see, May? Because if so, I might have to go grab my book. Today, it's today. Oh, okay, hold on, everybody. Go to the bathroom, grab a beverage. Hugo Homestead, how's it going? We went through all our gardening and history conversation. Now I'm fascinated with the fact that I didn't know it was the full moon. Hello. Dave says, full moon, I planted lots outside today. Jay says, yep, or Terra Preta. Know it all. Full moon, that explains my chocolate martini. Full flower moon is what it says on the internet here in front of me. But when I refer to my Sleeping with the Sunflower book for May, it says corn planting moon. Grief melts away like snow in May, as if there were no such cold thing. Silly Lily says we're having a purpley pink sunset. Doesn't the sunset just give you a feeling of, I don't know, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? When you watch the sun go below the horizon. Thanks, Tammy, for bringing it up. Thank you for telling people I'd be right back. This time it wasn't for a kid. Is Terra Preta done in your own garden still a thing and does it actually work the same way? If so, I might try and make it on my next project. You know, David the Good runs experiments with that. And I would believe that food forest permaculture could tell you a lot about that. Silly Lily says, I love my sunrises and sunsets. So, what are some things it wants to talk about? Planting time, popcorn, rabbits away with a fence it talks about. It's not always practical. Foiling the rabbits with human hair. This book has each month the name of the full moon and stories and sometimes recipes. This one's talking about old tools, spade, hose. I use a stirrup hoe. I really like it. Bells to beat the birds. Birds often get to fruit before you do. A bell was fastened to a post set in the garden, and a cord from the bell ran to the house kitchen. What? You could just ring the bell from the kitchen. Bayberry. Indigenous pioneers, colonists used plants for other things besides food. One plant was the wide-ranging bayberry or waxberry, myrica, wax myrtle, or sweet gale. Everything has a bunch of names, doesn't it? We're talking about things. It's a hardy shrub that occurs naturally from Nova Scotia to Florida and Alabama. The wax from the bayberries were used to make candles. Okay. Soap making was another task performed by early American housewife. Wood ashes saved during the winter were put into a barrel. Water was poured through the ashes to allow it to trickle. Through a hole near the bottom, the brown liquid or lye was then boiled in a large kettle with fats and grease saved from the year's cooking and butchering. The mixture was cooked slowly until thickened to form a soft jelly-like yellow soap. May foraging. Greens, wild plums, and then pickling time, butterflies and other insects, tiger swallowtails, cardinal, enhancing your environment with a garden, planting for winged guests, meadowland, wildflowers. Oh, you should see my wildflower seed haul. Things we're experimenting with. That was a previous live stream. Flower wines. Those Egyptians, you know. Like dandelion, mead, and wine. I'm looking to see if it tells me a specific, like, rhubarb or something. Honeysuckle wine. There we go. Here's a recipe for elderberry wine. I've done elderberry mead before. Field daisy wine. The daylily. It just keeps going. Usually I feel like the chapters aren't this long. Beauty secrets. Elderflower cream. 3 ounces of almond oil. Some kind of white wax. Lanolin. Bitter almonds of oil. Oil of bitter almonds. Elderflower water. Witch hazel. Here we go. Last page. A cologne water. Lavender, bergamot, lemon, orange flower, alcohol. Okay. I'm going back to the chat. See what you guys are talking about. Something's in all caps. Corn planting moon. I have a packet of corn seeds right here that I need to plant. That's proof that I am supposed to plant it tomorrow. Jay says the sunsets on the nearby Lake Huron were rated the best in Canada. Yeah, the bow tie says ring the bell from the kitchen. Genius. Jay and Silly Lily are talking about the sunsets. Many days I also see the same sunset over a local pond a few meters from my home. Howie's talking about soil is made in layers of green and brown biomass, 1 inch every 10 years in a forest. The Mayan way is the best by layering water lettuce from the canals to make rich black soil. Bowtie's catching up with the 1.25 speed. Jay says to Bowtie, does yelling help prepare the corn seeds for planting? Big Will Dog says, could the lower nutrition of ancient crops have been negated due to humans of the times digestive systems turning to that diet? I mean, think of the shock of getting all of the wild yeast off of all of the things they're foraging, like the berries and fruits and whatever. There's a thing I read, and I don't know if it's true, and this is why I didn't include it in my presentation. So if you're still here, you're going to hear it now. Apparently, mothers started feeding babies porridge. Like, what? Back then? So they could stop breastfeeding and get back to the fields to work. Now, I don't know if that is accurate, that 10,000 years ago we introduced the silly concept of that, but that's how I feel about it. I feel that it's silly. Bowtie says to Jay, they all jumped to attention as I yelled that, dressed in their uniforms and are determined to stand in neat rows until they germinate. Talking about the corn seeds. Howie says, Mayans buried their waste and grew fantastic food. Hashtag Pathway Soil Bank equals the Mayan way of making soil. Andrew, it is so good to see you. Dave. I went to the offsite garden to water at sunset and it was so hot I couldn't do it. I did a couple things and then I was like, no, I'll try to come back tomorrow when the sun is in the east because it was not okay. Bowtie says, I don't think nutrition degraded till 1996 when man started to mess up the genetics. I have a ton on this topic. I think it was Bowtie. Remember when we talked about, well, anyone, all of you, I'm not just talking to Bowtie, the oh, the words left my mind now. The whole victory garden, survival garden thing, like the 1940s conversation, I feel like that was when it really started to get wonky from what we discovered in that conversation. Hey, Misfit Mania! Thanks for popping in. Good to see you. Big Will Dog says to food forest permaculture, the only in-ground bed I have started with compost, then leaf mold, and finally chopped straw. That's my method every year. So far, so good on native clay starting soil. Jody, genealogy. Hey everyone, good to see you. I have a child situation. Thank you all for being patient. I am a mother of 3, and I try to do these shows late as possible to avoid stuff, but it happens every time anyways. Gandalf, I saw you were here and you're leaving, I think is what I read. Foxy Joe, hello everyone. We are actually at the end of our conversation. We discussed foraging to farming. We discussed the full moon tonight, so check it out, everybody. Get off your technology and go look at nature for a while. I'm going to be saying goodbyes. Tan. Bowtie, it's too hot. I can't do 85. I'm not okay. I'm melting. Bowtie says, oh yeah, no, I don't think it was then. I think the Victory Garden area was the time people briefly returned to healthy eating. Well, those ads, that propaganda was talking about spraying the bugs. Then, bad. You know, it's like, yeah, totally. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. I think it's a fantastic conversation. Foxy Joe says, I often wonder about ancient people and their teeth. Oh, thank you for bringing up teeth. So before I finish reading that, you know how I was talking about women using rocks to grind things? Little bits of rock would end up in stuff, and then they would end up biting on it. And dental was bad for that aspect of it. No one brushed their teeth back then. Howie might be still here. There was something I thought that people used to wipe their teeth with, a leaf of a plant, but I don't know if that was like we're talking about 10,000 years ago in this specific episode of the series. How come they all had teeth without caring for them? Was it the food? That did not come up too much in my research. The part of chewing on rock pebbles did, but if anybody has anything to add to that, that'd be fantastic. Maybe I can add that to the future episodes, talking about that kind of thing, like gardening and teeth health, you know? Jay says the natural soil in my area is sand, ancient lake bed. Using adapted hugelculture and raised beds has been a game changer. There is lots of yard waste at the curb in my village. Boche says, wow, quite the crowd. And it's a very exciting point in history of the Victory Gardens. I mean, the amount of numbers of pounds of food that was grown then, like, let's go back to growing some more food for our bodies, right? LGGG Love says, that's so cool, Andrew. 24 daylight. Yes, the momming. Thank you. Happy belated Mom's Day. Joanne! Aw, good to see you. Jay says to Foxy Joe, some civilizations used other dental care, like chewing sticks. Yeah, I think there was a plant that they wiped their teeth with. Big Will Dog says, I feel most of the times food nutrition takes a dive whenever war affects a nation. Then new, better ways come along to mess things up further. Jay says to Bowtie, thanks for alerting me. I do want to be here. Bowtie says, I can see the full moon on a live stream, which requires technology to see the wonderful blue moon in Technicolor. Come on, man. Come on. Bowtie says, they did brush their teeth. Yeah, what was the plant? Bowtie says, not sure I can cover that 200 characters at a time. No, exactly. Right? No. Caveman breath, Tammy says. Silly Lily says, early civilizations like the Egyptians and Babylonians used frayed twigs to clean their teeth around 3,500 BCE. And we're talking about 10,000 BCE right now. The chew sticks helped remove plaque and debris. Here we go. Howie is here. Crushed hemp branch was used for a toothbrush in Europe, and water freshen your breath. Native hemp in the Americas and simpler plant. Here we go. The numbers. Bowtie, 24 billion servings of food grown in 1942. Andrew says, my kids will stay up all night after Friday. No curfew here. Your kids are much older than mine, I think, too. 32 billion servings in 1943, 52 billion servings in 1944, and 1945. So if I know I said we're saying goodbye, so just give me a minute here. If I can find anything. Using sticks and twigs to remove food debris and potentially some rudimentary treatments for cavities, such as using beeswax or bitumen as a filling material. Tooth decay became more prevalent when the shift to more carbohydrate-rich diet from agriculture. So that was specifically supposed to be for the Neolithic period. But when I do quick research like this off the spot when we're live, it's hard to check sources very quickly. I always try to go with something that looks like they know what they're talking about. You know how you have to have internet safety. The use of beeswax in a tooth to fill it was dating back to 6,500 years ago. That bitumen is a type of tar, so I feel like that would have been after what we're talking about. And then, yeah, diet had everything to do with it. The advent of agriculture and the consumption of grains and starchy foods led to the higher prevalence of tooth decay. So again, like one of those things that comes with change, right? Silly Lily says, did I read this? Egyptians used toothpaste as early as 5000 BCE with formulas incorporating ingredients like salt, mint, and pepper. Howie says, if you are hungry, the ocean will feed you. Yeah, that was part of the research, was the people that were living in those types of areas definitely ate from the ocean, right? Learn new skills and practice makes perfect. Here we go. It's 6, 8, 10, 11, 13, 15. Mine's today still, it's 4, 5, 6 are the ages. I had to question myself. Billion with a B, says Bowtie. Is that how I should teach the sound B? I always say bumblebee and butterfly. Should I say billion? Jay says, to me, the JBot has similar issues in live streams to help people, but struggle for responsible accuracy. Yeah, and then like condensing it, and it needs to make sense. Yes. Big 10'3". Yeah, you were talking about the polar bear somewhere else. I saw you. And like, how do you catch a polar bear, might I ask? And 1 mile is a little too close to home, right? Good night, Howie. Good to see you here tonight. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate your support and your facts and your knowledge. Carbs bad, says Tammy. Bochai says, yes, thank you, Silly Lily. I was thinking of the Egyptians. Foxy Joe says, I say diet. No one taught them to brush or clean their teeth. We can't interview anybody and ask them, right? And they don't have, like, there's no video of it. There's no pictures. None of that existed. Big Will Dog says to Howie, I keep my fishing skills sharp by going as much as possible between tending my garden and my 2 fur babies. Andrew eats from the ocean. Bowtie says you can catch a polar bear with a big have a heart trap. Andrew says snow machine chase the polar bear with the long pew pew. Okay, see, I was like, is it a net? Is it a hole in the ground? Is it dynamite? Like, what are we using? Thank you, Andrew. Oh, Foxy Joe. Unless it was aliens. Okay, we're at our hour mark. I feel like we've said everything. We did the poll. I love all of your opinions. We talked about what our next show is going to be. So I always say grow every day in every way, and we will see you in the next live. You have to subscribe and watch your notifications because I never know when it's going to be. It's just going to be late at night is the answer. I don't know what day. It depends on the scheduling. I will see you all around. Thank you.